thank you for your service to the country. I know you'll be sad not to get to come here and testify in front of the committee anymore after today. General Cavoli, in his first term, President Trump withdrew the United States from the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty. Finally, after years of Russian cheating with impunity, that's allowed our military to develop longer-range missiles. The Army has been developing the long-range hypersonic weapon, a ground-launched missile that has a range of up to, well, it has a long range, I'll put it that way. It appears that the Army's first multi-domain task force in the Pacific is slated to get this weapon first. Do you see a role for the long-range hypersonic weapon in EUCOM?
I do, Senator Cotton. I think it would be very useful. I think coming out of the INF Treaty was a very important move, and it's one that we now should capitalize on in all the relevant theaters. The Army's multi-domain task force long-range fires battalion is the real key component. It's got several systems in, as I think you know, and there is a move to, there is a request out there to place one of those in Europe that I could get into in closed session in detail with you if you'd like, sir.
Okay, thank you. General Langley, the Trump administration has conducted multiple airstrikes against Al-Shabaab targets since taking office. What's your current assessment of the threat that Al-Shabaab poses to our national interest and specifically to the U.S. homeland?
Senator, Al-Shabaab is especially a heightened terrorist threat, namely because they're colluding with the Houthis across from Yemen. And so we're watching that closely. The President and the Secretary of Defense has given me expanded authorities. I can talk about those details as far as expanded authorities, but I will say we're hitting them hard. I now have the capability to hit them harder.
Okay, Al-Shabaab is in the Horn of Africa on the East Coast. There's obviously other terrorists operating throughout Africa associated with Al-Qaeda or the Islamic State. What's your assessment of the threats that all those terrorists on the African continent pose, and again specifically pose to the U.S. homeland?
Senator, left unchecked, they will have a direct threat on the homeland, whether it's just their networks or even their ideology. We remember 1 January 2025, what happened in New Orleans. Still, there are some that have been indoctrinated by this false ideology of Islam.
Okay. General Cavoli, coming back to you, outside of your AOR, but I think perhaps with some follow-on effects, the Assad tyranny fell late last year. That has imperiled Russia's access to its naval base in Syria. There have been reports that Russia is looking to replace that base elsewhere in the Mediterranean, including potentially in Libya. How do you assess the situation in the Mediterranean and Russia's access to the Mediterranean since the fall of Assad?
Senator, they've suffered a big loss. They've suffered the ability to maintain sustained maritime operations in the Eastern Mediterranean. It's much more difficult for them now. They are searching, and I'll let Mike talk about this if you'd like to, sir. They're searching for alternative basing to replace Tartus, which they've mainly lost on the north shore of Africa. They've failed so far to achieve a long-term agreement for a major base. So this will be significant. It's significant not only because we have a reduced presence of submarines, Russian submarines in the Eastern Mediterranean now. It's also surface vessels that find it harder to do sustained operations. And finally, it's much more difficult for Russia to sustain the operations, both overt and covert operations that they're doing in Africa without those bases. And the Alliance and U.S. EUCOM are both taking actions to try to make sure we keep them boxed. General
Langley, anything to add?
Yes, Senator. I watch Maghreb closely. Russia now does have initiatives because that is NATO's southern flank, from Morocco to Algeria and even Tunisia and Libya. I engage with them closely for shared objectives of denying the militarization of the NATO's southern flank.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.